It's June 13th, 2013. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. I'm Will Smith. Directly to my left, Norman Chan.
Thank you for introducing me.
How are you doing, sir?
Well rested.
That must be nice. That's good.
Well, I went from having 4 hours sleep the night before to 6 hours sleep.
See, it's amazing how when you're in a desert with no water, the smallest sip makes you feel better.
Yes.
To your left is Loyd Case. How you doing, Loyd?
Yo, I'm waving at everybody. Hi.
Hi. If you're watching on video, you can see Loyd wave just then. What's new in the case world these days?
Not a whole lot. I mean, it's summertime, right? So both my college-age daughters are more or less home. Actually, my wife went off to pick up my older daughter this morning.
Okay.
Down from L.A.
Oh, cool.
Driving down to just as a bonding trip.
Well, she's got a lot of stuff to haul back.
Oh, the dorm. Is it dorm or
No,
apartment?
it's an apartment.
Okay.
Apartment, yeah.
I think Joey's calling to help me set up the video stuff now, but it's a little late, Joey. Yeah, I'll talk to him later.
You can send directly to text or something. You can
I'm doing that right now.
There's a feature.
Yeah. I'm saying I can't talk. It's okay. We figured it out. We were in LA yesterday. Norm and I were.
Right.
For the
E3.
Electronic Entertainment Expo.
You guys went like a day after the big press conferences. So what did you actually see there?
Well, so I went on Sunday night and went to the press conferences.
Okay.
It's been a crazy week.
Yeah.
It's been a crazy week since we last podcasted, which was last Tuesday with Gary. We podcasted with Gary before all the big announcements. Since then, there have been big national, international news. And then they're in the technology world.
Well, and the international news was in the technology world, too.
Yes. And then on Monday, we had 3 big press conferences. And then we were actually on the floor yesterday to see a bunch of stuff. So let's just get down to it and talk about all this stuff.
Are we going to talk about NSA? Are we going to start with that?
It's on the list, but it's not. I don't know.
I don't know that we're qualified to talk about that, frankly. Well, not that that's ever stopped us before.
Let's get that out of the way.
Okay.
As I'm sure many people are aware, last week the Guardian newspaper in London released a story of a leaked document from the NSA.
Our fascist government is spying on us. That's what you're trying to say slowly.
That said, I guess it was a PowerPoint presentation that said the NSA has a program called PRISM that theoretically taps into the servers of 9 very big technology companies.
And then since then, information came out that shows that it's actually a much larger, potentially a much larger list of companies. And at the same time, the companies involved have said, no, they don't have a direct access. They have to go through some sort of channel to get the information that they're asking for.
There's some discrepancy between what this presentation says, what the companies themselves are saying, and also what could be the overall picture. I mean, NSA and the government spying on U.S. citizens and non-U.S. citizens is nothing new.
Well, no, the NSA is not supposed to spy on U.S. citizens. That is their mandate. They are
not supposed to.
CIA and NSA are for external use only.
Without or just people in the U.S.
Yes.
Maybe not U.S. citizens.
They theoretically can spy on foreign nationals that live in the U.S.
who are living in the U.S. But after 10 years ago,
you mean the 9/11?
Yes,
and the Patriot Act.
And the Patriot Act. Many reports have come out of government agencies just being irresponsible with their surveillance capabilities. Because they're run by people.
Well, it also goes. I mean, I think I can't. Was anybody really surprised? I mean, really.
Well, we went through this before because in 2007, remember the I can't remember what the act is, but there was basically a law that was enacted to non-indemnify the telcos for cooperating with potentially illegal federal wiretaps.
Right. So as we understand it right now, there's a system in place, a procedure in place, where the NSA and CIA can request information.
Metadata, as Obama said multiple times,
from companies, and the companies can appeal, but most likely a court will force them to hand over the data. with due cause, and then that data can be theoretically used to enhance security. But the speed at which that data is handed over and which that process happens is pretty much it's not the old send a letter and subpoena someone and then get some information. It's can be very automated.
Right. To the point that they're requesting millions of times a day from some of these companies, it seems like, including Verizon.
And so that is where the semantics comes in, and it's not technically a backdoor access. They still go through procedure, but the procedure is very, very easy.
It's the procedure is akin to buying stock online, with the expert trading systems.
There's no actual human intervention saying, oh, maybe we shouldn't do this particular one or whatever.
Right, because they're doing billions or billions a day, a month rather.
The other side of the coin, though, is that collecting that much data and trying to actually make sense of it. I mean, what that actually means is that it's unlikely that your particular email message or voicemail message will get heard or read.
But they can have easily, just like Google scans emails for advertisements and machines do that.
That's robo-scanning.
Robo-scan. I'm sure the government can have robo-scanning, scan the stuff they get from these companies, and then also pick out things. And it's all stored. I think someone described it as, it's like an iTunes library. You can just call up phone calls, record phone calls. And
once the information's stored, then the challenge becomes not collecting the information is the hard part.
Right.
Storing it and indexing it and searching it is less of a challenge and one that we've already solved as a technological species. So, I think the argument against this is that in a country where it's impossible to know all the laws, like you and I know, we know what's right and what's wrong. We don't know what's legal and illegal in many cases because it's very complex. When you collect that much information about citizens, and it's not probably a problem for right now, but it becomes a situation where anybody can be arrested for anything.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. I think that to some extent it's just the hysteria is a little overblown, but I agree with you in concept. It's interesting and somewhat ironic that this broke in The Guardian, even though it was an American writer that broke it.
Yeah.
Because, of course, England has had the Official Secrets Act and spy cams everywhere and all that stuff. They've been living with this stuff for years already.
Well, and I think the reason it broke in The Guardian is originally the guy who leaked it.
Glenn Greenwald.
Yeah.
Snowden
was the leaker.
He was the guy who reported it.
Yeah. Had pitched it to a couple of other papers in the U.S. and they wouldn't run it as he wanted.
Right.
So it's a fascinating story. Like
Did you read about how the whole thing went down? The meetup and the reveal?
Was there like secret garage? Was there Deep Throat style garage access?
He reached out to the Guardian, or I think Washington Post. He wanted some Washington legitimacy.
And it ended up running in the Post.
Yes, it was a cooperation. It was a story run by both Guardian and the Post, and also documentary filmmaker who had done works about security rights and stuff. But after they went through lots of vetting through the editors, he invited the writers over to Hong Kong where he's at because he left the country, and it was a whole go to this hotel, ask loudly for directions to another part of the hotel, and then you should see someone holding a Rubik's Cube, and that is the contact, and then meet me in the hotel room after that.
Wow.
Yeah, the whole meta story behind this reads like a bad spy novel.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's something Dan Brown wrote.
Real life is a very bad spy novel.
So, the takeaway for me from this is that collecting this information isn't probably bad for us today. But the question I ask is if Nixon had information on every phone call that was made in the United States and email existed, then every communication if he could have read every letter that was sent in the United States in 1960, 1969, 1970, do you think he would have?
Could he have?
Every single he would have found the people that if he could have gotten the email from his enemies, from people on the enemies list, he would have definitely known.
Right.
So you have to look at this is a thing that once it exists will exist forever.
Yeah, and I don't think the public
now.
understands really what being surveilled means in terms of digital surveillance.
Well, and I think in one respect that'll be a positive thing because right now people are kind of crazy about privacy. They have in the sense that they talk about privacy, but they don't live it. You know what I mean? So I tend not to put anything on the internet that I don't want everybody to see.
That's always been my policy.
Yeah, some people are, the people who are outraged about the government tapping into their emails also put all their information on Facebook,
right,
and Google,
right.
The thing for me is that this here's the thing: if there's a world with no privacy at all, and everyone is under the same standards of no privacy, so that we know everything about the president and the head of the NSA and the people that are working there in the same way, I actually think I'm probably okay with that. I think that probably ends up okay. But we don't have that world right now, and that's not a thing. That is not a thing that can exist today. And until that is the case, then I think that we need to protect our privacy.
If we're going to have a panopticon, let's have it be a multi-way panopticon.
I couldn't have said that better, Loyd.
And now is the right time for everyone who has been listening and fuming about all the inaccuracies to write their letters.
Angry comments. You can post them on the internet. You can threaten to bomb us. The NSA will know. It's cool. They know it about everybody. I mean, we're good. Speaking of, do we want to talk about the console stuff or the WWDC stuff next?
Let's do WWDC since that was...
You think that's the big one?
That's most relevant.
No, that's the one that Norm is most passionate about.
Oh, okay. Norm has strong opinions.
Yes.
So WWDC keynote was, it seems like a week ago now, but I think it was the day before yesterday when we were recording this.
Monday, 10 a.m. Pacific, and this is the first time that Apple has done a keynote since last September, October, when they announced the iPad mini. So they've been radio silent, for announcements at least, for many months.
So I was at the Microsoft Xbox event at E3 when this was going on, and as I was looking around, most of the people that had laptops open were on WWDC live blogs. No surprise.
Multitask.
We were invited to one of those two events, so we went to the one we were invited
to.
It's
one of the first times they live streamed.
No, they always live stream WWDC keynote because they can't because it sells out so fast. They want developers to have access.
What they haven't done in the past is like what Google I/O does and streams every single session. I don't think Apple does that with.
They say the sessions won't be streamed, but they'll be available.
Okay. Yeah, there's basically going to be podcast feeds or something like that on the developer channel.
So WWDC streamed live 2-hour keynote, and it was. You had
it's the normal format.
It's very, very, very.
Look at how good we're doing. Format. The stores are awesome.
Yeah, right. Look how great we're doing. How many units we've sold. How much we've paid developers. Here's a new store we opened. Here's a video we've made of the new store we opened with a pop song, and then let me introduce Eddie Q to talk about some stuff.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
It was interesting to me that
has worked well.
Like the stark contrast between Apple's way of getting developers pumped up at developer conferences and then the now notorious Ballmer developers screaming rant is always fascinating. So like, look, we're going to give you a boatload of money versus I'm going to yell at you and get real sweaty. So big announcements.
Going into WWDC, the anticipation was that people are hoping, since we are in June now, there have been no new iPads this year so far, no new phones this year. We knew iOS 7 was coming out. That was much everyone expected.
Yeah.
We knew that there would be some new Mac stuff coming out, but we wanted to see maybe some interesting new hardware, maybe a new category or something.
Right.
They don't really do that at WWDC. They do new product categories at their own special events.
I think the only surprise was the Mac Pro. I think that took everybody off guard.
I think I wasn't expecting to see that until later, just because the Haswell desktop stuff isn't really readily available to everybody else yet.
Hardware, new MacBook Airs announced. Only the Airs.
Right.
And they didn't even do like a stealth, MacBook Pro on all spec bump, which they sometimes do.
Well, the Airs had the most to gain because they're primarily integrated devices, and the Retina MacBook Pro, the 15-inch one, has NVIDIA graphics. The 13-inch one could actually, I think, could have benefited from Haswell. The 13-inch Retina Pro.
And sometimes they do those announcements just silently. They'll do a press release and update in the store. Stores down, stores back up. New products without doing a big show about it.
Right.
Air makes sense because they're a little beholden to Intel's schedule for Haswell.
Right.
And so Computex happened. And all the Haswell stuff was lifted, all mobile Haswell stuff. And so the new Airs, annual release, same design as basically 2 years ago.
Well, it is interesting. Apple made the announcement about the new Haswell MacBook Airs, and basically they're the only major PC manufacturer that has. I mean, we have smaller companies. Some of the Taiwanese companies have announced.
Yeah,
but Acer and ASUS. In terms of ultrabook category.
Correct.
Ultralight.
But we haven't seen Lenovo, we haven't seen HP, we haven't seen Dell.
Yep.
And Loyd, you think that is because they have more qualifications?
Yeah, I think the big companies, they also hold their fire until the back-to-school season. We'll see announcements in July.
Okay.
And Intel is very, very tightly knit with Apple now, and I mean they're one of the biggest customers.
Yep.
So that all makes sense. But it's you're right. A company that traditionally makes chips for PCs and laptops, and that overall is still a huge market.
Right.
The only place to get a Haswell laptop right now in store, ultra class, is going to Apple Store.
Right.
So 2 MacBook Airs.
Well, they're going to have the ASUS and the Acer
Yes,
models at
they'll have
Best Buy
those.
and stuff like
Right,
that, right?
right. Yes.
They will, but I mean today.
Oh, right. Well, I think the ASUS and Acers are in Best Buy now. They
Haswell
announced them
ones?
last week, and
They
they
did.
said I don't remember if they said
I haven't
shipping.
walked in- I never walked
I
into
can go look
Best
while
Buy
you guys
if I
keep
can avoid
talking.
Yeah. 2 MacBook Airs announced, update to the 11-inch, update to the 13-inch. Nothing, no Retina, as people had maybe hoped for.
Right.
The big selling feature this year is longer battery life,
Right.
and which is derived from using Haswell, the power efficiencies in Haswell. So graphics are bumped up a little bit.
4th gen Core i3,
Right.
right?
It's 4th gen Core
Okay.
processor. So you had Core,
So no, Best Buy doesn't have them
which
yet.
was Conroe.
Okay. Core was Conroe.
Conroe, Nehalem, then Ivy Bridge, Sandy Bridge,
Right.
Yeah.
which was kind of tied together, and this is the 4th one. So what you had then is you have Haswell, you have the low ends and high ends for that, those models, a i5 and i7. I think it's a 1.3 gigahertz for the low end.
I can't recall. It's
And,
HD 4400 and HD 5000, I
Right.
think, were the graphics options.
Right.
Depending upon whether you got the i5 or the i7.
Oh, I thought they were both 5,000. They're not both
No,
5,000?
one of them's a 4400.
Oh, wow.
Well, because the 11-inch is an i3, isn't it? Or is
No,
it
they're
an
both
i5? They're both i5s?
both
Yeah.
the 11-inch and the 15-inch have the exact same CPU specs.
Are you going to change your order?
No. But 11-inch is the way to go. Both the but in terms of they have 2 CPU options. You have the i5 or the i7. The i5 starts at 1.3 with turbo boost up to 2.6, which is a lower base clock than the Ivy Bridge i5. The i7 I think is still 1.7 or 1.8 gigahertz, which is the same as the Ivy Bridge and Sandy Bridge
Right.
clocks. And that the price difference for that is $150.
Right.
And like you said, then you also get the HD 5000 boost. No Iris in the MacBook Air stuff, so
Right.
no real gaming graphics.
So to sort of clarify what all it means, if you see something like HD 4400 or HD 4600, it basically has 2 sets of graphics computation, 2 slices, Intel calls them. The 5000 has 3 slices. It's the GT3, but it's the GT3 lower clocked without the embedded DRAM.
Oh, so that's kind of equivalent to ATI's render. I can't remember what they call them, but they're modular graphics design,
right.
basically,
Or NVIDIA's.
And-
Yeah.
or
Is that
NVIDIA's,
a straight up 50% improvement from 4600 to 5000?
I don't know. It's hard to say because the 4400 and 4600s, they also added 25% more execution units per slice.
Okay.
So a non-tech reviewed a non-Apple, I think, that had a 4400, and it was like 15 to 20% faster in games than the 4000 was.
Okay.
So you figure add another slice, and you'll probably get another 15 to 25%.
So in addition to Haswell, SSDs were bumped up. So now the base is 128 gigs, and then you add $200, I
Yay.
believe, for 256 gigs. 128 is wonderful.
Right.
I think you could
No more 64 gig.
operate. Yeah,
Yeah, 64 gig is unusable. Is that what you have, or do you
No,
have the
I
128?
have 128 on my 2-year-old MacBook Air. But
So I have 256 on mine, and it's essentially like I don't have to think about it.
You don't need to put storage in.
I do. I usually carry an external hard drive that's like a terabyte external hard drive just for things like that are huge, like raw video
Right.
and stuff like that. But for the most part, I work off of the 256 gigs, and I always have 60 or 80 gigs free. Which
And
is
the way Mac
like where
OS
you wanna
work is
be.
they have a large paging file because most of those Macs have 4 gigs of RAM.
Right.
You have the option for 8 gigs, and a lot of them for a long time had 2 gigs of RAM.
Yep.
But the memory management was such that they would just dump stuff onto disk. And so if you ran a computer without restarting it for a long time, all your hard drive space could be just consumed until you rebooted, and somehow you get an extra 20 gigs back.
Right.
So great 256 gig or 128 256 SSD, and now the
Express.
SSD, yeah, that's right, it's PCIe now and not SATA. And so what are the benefits there?
More speed.
So it's just a faster, it's a
faster.
less mediated connection.
Right. It'll take advantage of the faster SSDs that are coming out.
Is there any physical hardware changes in terms of layout then?
For the pictures that I saw, I think somebody had a picture of a main board on one of the systems. I can't remember which one. And it looks nearly identical to the MSATA one they had before. It's just a different electrical interface.
Probably keyed a little differently too.
Right. Different connector, different controller.
Yeah, but from a distance, I mean, the card was the same shape.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff.
Okay.
I wonder if that means that now those cards will be, because I know for a while people were selling third-party MacBook Air SSDs if you wanted to put something huge in your system, but I don't know. I don't know if that's if this is going to hinder that or make it easier, because I know that
I think it's a big wash. I mean, there's it's slightly more expensive to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pay the extra money up front to get your larger SSD.
Right.
I mean, my rule on Airs is that, and Ultrabooks in general, is that you should buy what you want to have for the entire life of that device. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so Airs, I think we've hit the high points there. We should talk about the Mac Pro.
Also they changed the RAM up in the Air. It's a different type of DDR3, I think.
It's faster.
Faster and a little more power efficient.
The Haswell memory controller is specifically designed for higher speed DDR3.
Okay.
So otherwise, it's the same thing, same resolution screen, same form factor. I bet if you put a Ivy Bridge Air and a Haswell Air next to each other, you would not be able to tell difference. If you put an Ivy Bridge Air, you would, because of the USB 3 port. It's not blue. And is yours blue?
No, it's not blue.
So not blue. So I bet
they don't do blue
Ivy
ports.
Bridge, Sandy Bridge, and Haswell will all look the same.
Does the new Air have the faster Thunderbolt controller? The one that does
it doesn't have Thunderbolt 2 yet.
Okay.
No Thunderbolt 2.
That's one of the reasons, by the way, that the Mac Pro isn't actually shipping now, is because they have to wait for the chipsets for.
Oh, okay. I wondered about that.
There's also 802.11ac on the new Airs.
That's good. Yeah, and they announced a new Airport Express to take advantage of that.
That's good.
Right.
Have you ever used their? So I've been using Linksys or ASUS routers with the DDWRT for years. So I haven't used one of the Airport Expresses since probably the 802.11g days. I kind of feel like I should get one of those and try it out and see if it actually works for people who don't use Macs exclusively, because that was always the knock against it.
I have a Netgear router.
Yeah. Mac Pros.
Apple announced a new Mac Pro.
Wow, really?
Which is the first time, which they had hinted at for a long time.
I mean, it's time.
Tim Cook at All Things T said they would. They are not ignoring the Mac Pro. He said last year, and he said that he also announced that they would be making a new system in the U.S.
Right.
Not just assembled in the U.S., but parts also manufactured in the U.S.
So no Foxconn, or is there Foxconn in the U.S. now?
Has a plant in the U.S. now.
But I mean, Mac Pro is way, way overdue for an upgrade. The case is 10 years old, just physically.
Well, I mean, the thing is,
the parts are 4 years old.
Right, the size of an oil can now, right?
Yeah.
Well, I love that case still.
The old case?
The existing case.
Yeah.
Love it.
I mean, it has so much aluminum in it, though. it's ridiculous.
Silverstone has done so well ripping it off.
So the new Mac Pro has some interesting, innovative features. It's got a central cooling well with one fan.
So it's almost like a data center, like a server rack, kind of cooled the same way, right?
Yeah, with the three cards, the main CPU card and the two graphics cards, kind of in this triangle inside the can.
It's a tall triangle, and wrap around it looks like a trash can. Around it.
Yeah, it looks like a fancy trash can. You pay $100 for it. Bed Bath &
So
Beyond.
Is it really a tube where air just goes through straight through the center?
Yes, pretty much. And you know, I'm sure they've tuned the acoustics of the fan and all that stuff. There's positives and negatives. The main negatives is that expandability is a problem, only through Thunderbolt and USB.
So there's no eSATA. Is there FireWire 800 even?
No.
Wow.
Yep. And also there are 6 Thunderbolt ports though.
Well, that's a lot. So, and actually, the Thunderbolt ecosystem is such now. I've been looking at this because I have a MacBook Air with Thunderbolt, and it would be nice to have a FireWire 800 port for video stuff sometimes. So you can actually buy docks that are still, I would say, fairly expensive, but not ridiculously expensive.
Well, and there's a lot of FireWire audio still out there too.
Yeah. And then the RAID controllers for FireWire for Thunderbolt are actually coming down now as well. That's
and you can find single drives too. Now.
Yeah,
for display and all that stuff.
Now, but the one of the big problems I see is that the graphics cards, which are AMD FirePro cards, are not interchangeable. You can't swap them out.
So they're permanently embedded in the system.
Right.
Wow.
So that's they're really high performance GPUs and all that jazz. But I think there's a problem with you can't go with NVIDIA. You can't upgrade them later. Or whatever.
So what's the market for a Mac workstation at this point? Is it video and audio editors?
Pretty much.
And because I mean, if you're doing Photoshop work, you can use an iMac at this point,
right?
Or a Mac Mini and whatever size monitor you want.
Well, the Mac Mini is a little underpowered for Photoshop.
Okay, so get the 27-inch iMac and call it a day. I got to assume people aren't doing much CAD work on Macs at this point.
No.
So then maybe the Fire GL cards are okay. If maybe that's as much as you need. If
Fire
you're,
Pro.
Fire Pro,
GL
sorry.
you're showing your age.
15 years old, yeah. Maybe the Fire Pro cards are okay for the market that's going to be interested in a Mac workstation.
Yeah, that Ars Technica article you guys linked to had a couple interesting points, though. A lot of the pro graphics guys now use NVIDIA cards because they use CUDA on a lot of particularly the higher performance stuff, what they call high performance computing,
okay,
which a lot of workstations are in fact used for. And so that's not an option anymore.
Big data problems.
Now, I could see somebody doing something crazy like building a cage of NVIDIA-based Tesla-style units with a Thunderbolt link to it.
Right, or multiple Thunderbolt links, yeah.
And Thunderbolt 2 has bandwidth to support that.
Right. But you won't be able to natively stick an NVIDIA card in there.
What
or anything in there.
Right.
What's the situation with OpenGL? I mean, it seems like CUDA won the OpenCL versus CUDA.
No, I think that's still evolving. I think long term, OpenCL will eventually take over, but OpenCL is still immature. Particularly, and the other comment, of course, on that Ars article is that the OpenCL drivers for AMD are very immature. Mm-hmm. The driver stack, not the API itself. And so, you have crashes and performance issues and things like that.
And for the kind of people that are buying expensive workstations, they don't really like crashes and performance
Plus,
bottlenecks.
the CUDA to OpenCL transition hasn't happened for a lot of the proprietary apps, the things that a university might write from scratch.
Okay. Well, because NVIDIA invested heavily in that stuff early on,
right?
And by keeping it closed, they were able to go much faster than they would be if they had to make everybody agree.
Right. From the perspective of like a prosumer user who might buy one of these, it's probably not an issue because a lot of the things like Photoshop are going with OpenCL and things like that.
Okay. What about like the video transcode apps and stuff like that, like the fast video? Because I know that
I don't know what the Mac ecosystem has for that. I know that on the Windows side, you're starting to see a lot of OpenCL options.
Okay.
They still have CUDA. They still use DirectX for some of them. They still use the CPU for some of them. But there's now increasingly an OpenCL option as well.
Okay. Interesting.
They didn't talk about when this would come out or later this year or pricing.
It's probably because they're using Thunderbolt 2, which doubles the throughput of the current Thunderbolt interface. And Intel officially announced Thunderbolt 2, but they said it wasn't shipping till later.
Did they specifically say what generation these chips would be, the CPUs would come from? Or
no, they said 12-core Xeon. Okay. They didn't say whether those 12 cores was on a single CPU or more than one CPU.
So there's
or at least I didn't get that.
There's a chance that they could also be waiting. They couldn't just make the announcement for Intel, but for the Haswell generation Xeons.
I gotta imagine these are Haswell generation Xeons. You don't relaunch this product with year-old CPUs.
Right. Plus, on top of that, they're going to want as much power efficiency as they can because this little thing's going to you don't want to generate all that heat.
Right. It would be like a little tornado blasting air straight up if it's Ivy Bridge.
And I'm sure they're not going to do that. Well, I think the GPUs are going to generate more heat than the CPU anyway.
Fair enough. Is the new Thunderbolt Thunderbolt 2 is essentially 2 PCI Express lanes, or is it double speed single PCI Express lanes?
I don't know. I just know that Intel is saying it's twice the throughput.
Okay.
You know what this also means? That graphics on or gaming on desktop Macs is kind of hit a dead end. Because a lot of people have Mac Pros and there's select Radeon cards, consumer Radeon cards they can put in there, and they're using Steam for Mac and playing high-end games on.
They'll still be able to do this
monitors.
Why not?
But you can't upgrade.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you're talking about something that I think is equivalent of a Radeon 7970, right? So it's going to be pretty fast.
2 Radeon 7970.
Well, no Crossfire, I don't think.
No Crossfire on Macs.
I mean, but that is their dead end then. I mean, unless.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at the situation with the console market, now that we know what the next gen consoles are, there's no surprises there. A 7970 is going to be capable of playing these games for 4 or 5 years.
Right.
But you're not going to be playing anything at 4K, dude.
Well, you may not. I want to.
I know you want to, but I mean,
totally want to.
Fill one hand with wishes and the other with Titan cards, and let me know which one fills up
money.
first.
It's empty pockets of money.
Not until 4K displays are $1,000.
$5,000 4K display, 2 Titan cards, 3 Titan cards at $1,000 each. You can play 4K at $8,000.
So we're going to see Norm next year panhandling.
Right. Need GPU. So the question, I mean, but the thing on that is, even getting a 3 GPU system to run reliably, because we used to do this when we were at Max PC, it was a real pain in the ass.
Right.
Like, you had to have exactly the right power supply, exactly the right RAM.
Right, and a Titan or a GTX 780 equivalent, and if AMD ever ships one, whatever that equivalent is, will drive certainly a 2K 2560 by 1600 display just fine when playing games, unless you're doing something crazy like trying to turn on AA on Metro Last Light, but that's a different animal entirely.
But and the other thing about when you're running at that kind of resolution, AA is a lot less important than it was at 1280 by 720.
Depends on the age of the game. It's interesting.
That's true.
So I just booted up for grins the original Mass Effect game, and low polygon count games. You want to crank. On the other hand, you can crank up the AA in those low polygon count games because they're low polygon count.
Yeah, they're super fill rate.
Right.
They're not at all fill rate limited. I guess they are fill rate limited, and you have plenty of fill rate.
And so some of those old games are just coded not efficiently, and no scale as well. Let's get a quick detour because you haven't been here since you reviewed the GTX 770 for us.
Right.
And we talked about it briefly in a previous podcast. But this is the card that you would recommend to people building a new gaming PC.
Yeah, the 770 is really a GTX 680 that's somewhat souped up. It's got this really high-speed 7 gigabit per second memory. It's got 2 or 4 gigs of that, depending on which model you get. It's slightly higher clock rate than the GTX 680. It's got more modern interfaces. It's compact, relatively compact and cool. So it's a really sweet card, and they're charging $399 for it, which is basically what they were charging for the GTX 670.
So it's cheaper than what the 680 was, 2 months ago.
Right.
But you're talking about it's still the same architecture because it's not 110, it's still 104.
No, it's still the GK 104.
Yeah, and this is weird because typically NVIDIA does a 80 launch, like a 680, 580, with their new architecture, and then they just take out some cores and lower the clock rate or the clock speed. For the 70 one, here the 780 and the 770 are two different architectures.
Right, the 780 is basically the GK 110 with fewer cores, and also they've cut the double precision stuff by even more.
But the double precision is much less important for games than it is for compute stuff, right?
Yes, it's only used for compute stuff.
So I have a 580 at home now. The 770 looks like the card for me to upgrade.
Yeah, it's substantially faster than 580.
Excellent. Do you want to talk about OS 10?
Let's continue with WWDC.
It's Mavericks, plural?
Mavericks. It's named after the break where the big wave competition happens in between Pacifica and Half Moon Bay.
Close to where you live.
I can ride my bike from there to there if I want to die. It's a really scary road to ride a bike.
I think it's a great naming scheme, and I think that it is an elegant transition.
Really?
Yeah, no, I think it's an elegant transition from.
This is the part of that you liked, and you didn't like the other part.
Yeah, I think it's
Norm.
From cats. I think cats have had their day. I think doing something similar in other like family animals would have been like not as cool.
I thought Sea Lion was much better than Mavericks.
No, you thought it was real, which is different.
Put on your aviators. Well, I was watching a live blog while I was watching the Microsoft press conference.
You guys are like talking about code names, and
this is ridiculous.
You got over code names?
I think that.
Really?
Have you never been here before, Loyd?
Code names?
I think Mavericks sets a really neat precedent. And it totally ties into designed in California.
Welcome. I can't wait for OS 10 California Adventure.
Well, designed by Apple in California has been on every Mac product or Apple product for years and years.
It's OS 10 Knott's Berry Farm.
You know what? That's for the unimaginative. That sounds a very unimaginative name, and I think
OS 10 Humboldt.
that would be great. There you go.
Okay, I mean, I guess they know their market.
Yeah. Chico, OS 10.
Yeah. OS 10 South Central.
I'm sure there will be a OS 10
Venice.
like Lawrence Livermore Labs or something.
There'll be an OS 10 La Jolla. And it'll be spelled the right way, and nobody will know how to pronounce it. And you'll have some guy in Indiana going and go, I need the copy of OS 10 La Jolla, please.
I think they can take there are lots of things in California that they can take inspiration from, and I think it'll be a fun guessing game.
People already hate California; they're going to really love this.
So I think the people who hate California probably hate Apple.
That's possible.
Subset.
I guess. So let's talk about OS 10
Mavericks. It's. I think it's interesting that there are a lot of things. It's a lot of like. As with every OS 10 release, hundreds of small little updates.
Okay.
Really cool updates. Some stuff
that's completely useless.
Some stuff completely useless.
iBooks.
Some stuff, I think the stuff they present on stage is way more useless than the stuff that actually all behind API stuff that they're going to put in. But what's more telling is what they didn't put in here. There was no touchscreen support, which would have been a huge overhaul.
Yeah.
Well, did they say no touchscreen support, or did they just not say that there is touchscreen support?
I think if there was touchscreen support
I don't think they would announce touchscreen support until they have hardware to support it.
That's right. What Apple will do is they'll announce some kind of laptop with touchscreen support and then say they invented it.
Absolutely agree.
It's beautiful and magical, and you can use 20 fingers on this screen at once. It's a brand new thing.
Totally ties.
It's going to completely change the way people use their computers.
And it totally ties into hardware too. So, they made a decision with the MacBook Airs to maximize Haswell by extending battery life.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that. That was kind of an important part.
Maximizing,
of the
doubling, on paper, doubling their battery life.
Right.
What is it? 12 hours on the 13-inch, 9 hours on the 11-inch, which would be amazing because I get maybe 2.5 hours.
Well, the other piece of that puzzle, people think about using it for 9 hours. The other interesting thing about that though is that when you shut the lid, it'll hold you'll have juice a month later.
And even on existing MacBooks, even from 2 generations ago, the idle time has been great.
Right. It's
and
like
idle
2
time
weeks maybe
on Ultrabooks today on the PC side are great.
Right.
You could close a Lenovo Yoga.
I never turn off my Yoga.
Yeah, you either plug it in, to charge it, or you have it just in idle.
Right.
And it's taking advantage of the architecture. That's great. I don't think there's going to be touch. Touch would require, like Will said, a huge hardware overhaul. Mm-hmm. Because you're going to have increased costs, probably change in design.
Well, the other thing is they just updated those iMacs. Like the thin bezel on the new iMac, I would be shocked if they can support a touch display on it.
And I bet that they probably have touch prototypes that they've experimented with in-house, but I think they want to tell a different story than touch on PCs.
Right.
They want to tell they want to come up and say, on stage and say, on the PC side, our competitors have had touch, because touch was a big thing with Windows 8, and they'll show straining arms and no one wanting to touch their screens, and they want to do something different. So they've had patents, with iMacs to, put the iMac flat on a table like Lenovo does, and they'll claim they invented that.
Right.
And I bet,
or they'll have a fold-over design like the Yoga and say that.
And they'll say, now, but their hinge is better and more sturdy.
Yeah.
The hinge on the Yoga is just fine, and on the Helix also just fine. But that's them not wanting to invest all these resources and release it this year, so they can stagger it, so that when they can, next year or the year after, they can say they did it right. So no touch, but what you do have in Mavericks on the interesting architecture side is a lot of power conservation.
Well, let's take advantage of Haswell, right?
And memory management. So you have
so the memory management is the least sexy, most exciting thing that they can talk about on a stage, right?
Least sexy to talk about on stage, but most exciting stuff from stuff you don't know is working on behind the scenes.
Right. If it works the way they said it does, and I haven't downloaded the developer seed yet, and I don't know that I'm going to for a little bit, because I like living on the edge, but I like living on the beta 2 or maybe beta 3 edge, not the beta 1 edge. The app lag that happens, one of the things you notice if you use both Windows and OS X regularly is that there's very frequently, especially when you're doing stuff that's high memory use, a fairly substantial lag launching new apps. And it happens to me when I'm, say, rendering a video or rendering a podcast, which is a memory intensive thing. I have a 4 gig system here, and being able to make that app switch happen more quickly is a good thing as far as I'm concerned, because something that doesn't happen on my Windows machine. Of course, in fairness, my Windows machine is like a 12 gigabyte of RAM, hexa core, and this is a dual core, 4 gig system. But still,
yeah, they have things called compressed memory priority reduction, and all their energy optimized. Audio buffering, idle hygiene, all that stuff.
Hygiene?
Yeah, they idle hygiene. Super unsexy.
Idle hygiene? Like IDOL or IDLE?
IDLE.
That's creating bad visions inside my brain right now.
I feel like I need to go lay in a corner and scrub.
Yeah. But I think that all these power efficiency, and it's not going to be in. Like if you buy a MacBook Air now, you don't get Mavericks because it's not coming out in the fall. Yeah. It's going to compound with the Haswell stuff. Yep. So it'll probably
and to be really perfectly balanced about this, Windows 8.1 is going to have a ton of stuff built into to take advantage of Haswell as well.
Yeah, the low power state stuff especially. I know. Well, build is next week, I think, or week after next. So we're going there too. We're equal opportunity. They'll talk about all the Windows 8.1 stuff there, I'm sure.
Right. Hopefully, it won't rain this year.
Well, it's just down the street at least. So,
okay.
Yeah, because it's Moscone again.
It's the same building.
Yeah, it's the minimum time that Moscone allows, that Apple will allow another tech conference to occur in this space that they have reserved for the next forever. On the feature front, do we want to talk?
Multiple monitor support?
I'm sorry?
On the feature front?
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about multiple monitor support. Like, they are doing this in a granular way that is... I used to be a real huge multi-monitor guy. Back when big displays were really expensive, were prohibitively expensive. I had two 22 or two 24-inch monitors on my desk at all times. Since 30 and 27-inch panels have gotten under $1,000, that I think just get one huge panel rather than like the day for multi-monitor.
No. Three huge panels.
That's crazy, Lloyd.
I think the interesting thing.
Actually, let me argue about this for a second. Okay. I will agree that 3 30-inch panels kind of you get this sort of data center submarine warfare.
Yeah, it's like you're a day trader.
3 27-inch panels are actually much more compact than you think they are, particularly since they're 16 by 9.
Are you doing them vertical or horizontal?
Doesn't matter. They still take up a lot less room than you think they are because they're now 16 by 9.
Oh, okay.
So 27, 16.
Well, they take the same amount of width. There's something same amount as height.
Right. But they visually they take up. To your eye, they look a lot less bulkier than 3 30-inch panels.
Well, and if you buy 3 of those Korean panels, then like you're spending the same thing I've spent on my 30-inch monitor, probably.
Right.
I don't think most people are buying multiple big screens. I think it makes more sense on the mobile side where you're plugging one screen into a laptop.
Right.
And when you do that now, you either close your laptop, you don't use both those screens because there's a lot of inefficient ways that they manage spaces. And I think that's the multi-monitor support that's going to really benefit.
So the thing that they've done with multiple monitors and spaces and mission control is the stuff that they broke when they introduced spaces and mission control. So previously, if you'd used the virtual desktop feature, which they call spaces now, you could control each monitor independently of each other. As soon as they introduced mission control, that stuff all went away. So they all got grouped together. So your left monitor and your right monitor have the same, are bound to each other as one space.
Okay.
So if you wanted to change, you couldn't have one virtual desktop on one monitor and a different virtual desktop on another monitor. Okay. And now it seems like that's you have much more granular control over that. I think that's probably okay because the people who are interested in virtual desktops are probably competent enough using computers that they're not going to get confused by that and lose stuff.
Right.
I think if you start delving into spaces and mission control, you're probably pretty hardcore. I think that's good. I'm interested in it. I'm very skeptical of that AirPlay display claim. I don't know if any of you have used the mirroring or second monitor AirPlay feature. It is incredibly laggy on my Ivy Bridge laptop.
Oh, laggy make YouTube video will not play?
Just in general, like the mouse lag, the desktop experience is bad, the compression is kind of crappy.
I think you have to really think of it not as a second display, but more as a projector. And
a place to display,
like PowerPoint presentations.
Keep your email up there or something like that. Yeah.
But if it's a place for me to display my aperture, like to show the final edited aperture photos, I'm not cool with it being compressed and laggy. I mean, this seems like something. Either they're doing something different that they didn't actually get into in the press conference.
They've got. Are they using the full 802.11 AC bandwidth for the new one now?
Well, they can't use the full because it's probably shared with all the other stuff. It may work better with AC.
No, what I'm saying is you're getting more bandwidth anyway.
But the Apple TVs are still N.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, my Apple TV is wired in. I'll get an AC network and try it.
I have to say, though, that the Apple TV, I've experimented around with the Apple TV and the second display feature, and it is incredibly laggy. It's actually worse than it is with Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So, Intel actually did something better than Apple.
Yeah.
Figure.
I mean, part of it's because with the Apple TV, the AirPlay stuff only works over wireless. So
your wireless network, it's not direct device.
It is not direct device. So you have two. It's a double connection. So maybe they have a direct signal, a direct connection now.
Right.
I don't know what it is. I can't imagine you can actually use that in a desktop situation.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
What about the keychain?
The keychain, as somebody who happily paid $100 for 1Password years ago and is never going back, a Apple ecosystem specific version of that is a very low value to me because I use Windows and Mac,
low value
and Android.
But for some other people,
if you plan to only use Apple devices forever and ever, then you should definitely do that.
It's free.
It's great. But if you ever use Android, Windows Phone, anything that's not Apple, you should not put your passwords into Apple's ecosystem.
They didn't talk about pricing either. They just said...
Also, with PRISM, I don't know that I trust Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and whoever else to hold my passwords.
They didn't talk about... they said this fall for release.
For OS X?
OS X Mavericks.
Yeah, there are a couple other things. The granular notification control and the ability to reply to stuff from notifications looks great. They took out the dumb fake leather from calendars, but otherwise left it more or less the same, it looks like.
Tabs in Finder.
They're putting Maps, Apple Maps. I mean, they're doubling down on Apple Maps. Say what you will. The other day on my iPhone, I had Google Maps and Apple Maps navigating me to the same place, and they gave completely different directions.
Of course they did.
It was fascinating. I highly encourage anybody to do that. If you want to see, if you think we're crazy about the Apple Maps being bad, Apple Maps tried to send me down a one-way street the wrong way in downtown San Francisco, where you would think that they would have that stuff figured out. And then tried to make me had me make a couple of illegal left turns, whereas Google Maps sent me in the right direction, didn't try to get me killed. So, I mean, I guess it's good that they're doubling down on
But maybe
maps.
that was deliberate, Norm.
It's possible. Maybe it is. And then the Finder tabs, I think, are good. I don't know that tags in the OS is something I'm super excited about, but maybe it'll be different when I get there. But having multiple tabs in Finder and not having 50 million Finder windows open sounds great. The big kahuna? You want to go to the big thing from WWDC next?
iOS 7, flat icons.
Yeah, so I got to admit, I fell asleep. I was watching this keynote at like 11 o'clock on Monday after all the press conferences, and I fell asleep. So I haven't seen the iOS portion of the keynote yet.
It was the biggest stuff.
I know. I should have fast forwarded.
Biggest change to iOS.
That Berlin Apple store looks awesome, though, right? It's like in an old castle, and there were a bunch of happy Germans there. It was wonderful.
It's a theater, and they do concerts there.
Yeah, exactly. It's all where all the cool kids in Berlin hang out. The control center thing looks awesome. Let's just start. Okay. Let's start with features, and then let's have the design conversation after we've gotten through the meat.
New features in iOS 7. The big thing: control centers. In addition to swiping down from the top of your screen to get notifications, which I thought was a great idea on paper, but a feature that I rarely use now.
You have to really curate those notifications for them to be useful.
Now you can also swipe from the bottom up to get quick access to settings like airplane mode, brightness, music playback.
Yes, that's great.
And this does not replace the double tap on the home button for your multitasking.
For the task switcher.
Or the task switcher. But this control thing also... you can activate it from the home screen, the lock screen, as well.
Oh, really? That's good. I mean, this seems like the kind of thing.
So anybody can.
If you don't have a password.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, but the stuff that's on here, you'd be able to play music, and I guess you could AirPlay and AirDrop, but that's it. This seems like this is. I'm going to go ahead and say the thing that everybody who uses Android phones has said, which is that this is a feature that should have been in iOS for a very long time.
Well, the other feature that I liked that I just learned about was the fact that you can now block phone calls by number.
Thank God.
Yes.
That fax machine can never bother me again.
Wait. Block phone calls by number. So okay.
So you can say,
don't this number calls me. Just don't answer.
Never ring.
Never ring. Yeah.
Oh, that is wonderful. Because you have no idea how many fax machines are out there that just keep dialing and dialing and dialing.
Oh,
and dialing.
I have this non-English speaking woman who somehow got a hold of my Google Voice number, which is tied to my iPhone, and she calls me like daily. And
not only do you get the phone calls, you get the Google Voice text.
That's right, which actually is indecipherable. This cannot because she's not speaking English.
Well, you can put her in her own list in Google Voice that just never rings.
I need to do that. I haven't even looked at Google Voice. I forgot even I had a Google Voice number until she started calling.
That's my work line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If it doesn't recognize the number, it says, "Hey, I don't listen to voicemail messages. Don't leave one. Send me an email."
Okay.
It's the best thing ever.
Anyway.
Yeah.
This control center.
Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, airplane mode, do not disturb, rotation lock, brightness control, which is very good, especially on iPhone. Music playback, AirDrop, AirPlay, flashlight. I don't know what the timer is.
They took a bunch of the features that you would get if you double pressed home button and scroll to the left.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
And they just put it in a separate menu that you can swipe up.
Well, and then a bunch of stuff that wasn't easily accessible that you had to go into settings for.
You mentioned AirDrop also. Now there's AirDrop. There is still no...
About time.
There's still no, whatchamacallit,
device to device?
No. What is the technology that...
NFC?
NFC. There's still no NFC?
Well, they'll announce that with new hardware if new hardware decides to support NFC.
I don't know if they'll do that anymore because this AirDrop does it over Wi-Fi Direct, peer-to-peer.
Or Bluetooth. It says Bluetooth
or
also.
Bluetooth.
The AirDrop stuff is interesting because, like, what they said is specifically anything that uses the Share Button API will have access to AirDrop. Right. So that means your apps that already have a Share Button, an Apple Share Button, not a proprietary one, should just work with AirDrop, which is good.
What are the other features?
Remember the thing we came across earlier today, the game controller API? There's going to be a game controller API.
This is fascinating. So you can plug your Xbox controller into your iPhone?
Well, they're not being that specific about it, but there's going to be an actual game controller API so that third-party hardware guys can design actual game controllers for your iDevice.
That's fantastic.
Plug into the
or work over Bluetooth or work over whatever.
Boy, I wonder if you'll be able to even do like Arduino-based stuff with the Bluetooth controllers.
Gosh, wouldn't that be cool?
That would be amazing. You could make your own Nest pad.
Yes. There's no real details on it yet, but it's interesting that that's going to be there. So that makes it even more of a gaming device, particularly iPads.
I mean,
as well.
that is, if you look at the iPad and iPhone, iPad mostly, let's say, as a gaming device, the lack of physical controllers makes a large portion of the gaming world inaccessible.
Virtual analog sticks suck.
It's the worst. We should talk about that Halo dual stick, no stick shooter in a little bit.
There's also a flashlight built in now.
Flashlight's built in. Okay. I still think that's kind of useless because it's like bright enough that you can maybe find your keys if you know exactly where you drop them.
You'd be surprised how many people use that.
Better than nothing.
Yeah.
Notification Center, it's pretty clear that they realize that there's a problem with Notification Center, and they're breaking it out into 3 different parts. There's the what's going on today, which is reminders, meetings, stuff like that. And then there's the complete list of notifications, which unless you go through and remove everything that tries to add notifications for you from that list manually, which takes a really long time, and I do it once or twice a month, that notification pull down is pretty useless. They also have the missed stuff, which is missed phone calls, missed stuff that you didn't look at. That if you look at that, I guess will be useless, and if not, it'll probably match the all list entirely. So,
and this now all appears in the lock screen in a new and well-designed way.
So it pops up in the lock screen in a predictable. Because right now you say I want it to show up in the lock screen, and then nothing ever does, or very few things do.
It's not hierarchical.
We should look at our notification settings after a while, because I bet mine is really super trimmed down, so it's actually stuff that I use. And that actually made the notifications kind of useful, but it takes a ridiculous amount of work, way more than it should, to make that happen.
There's a feature called Activation Lock.
What is Activation Lock?
Activation Lock is if you lose your phone or if someone steals your phone, and someone tries to wipe it, they can't activate it.
Oh, so it makes stolen iPhones useless?
Stolen iPhones are useless.
So it's the thing that the carriers in other countries do by default. Like if your phone is stolen in Australia, you call the phone company, they lock it. Yeah. So it will never activate again.
You need to sign into your Apple ID account to unlock it, so you can activate it.
Oh, that's really scary if Apple doesn't have their security stuff locked down.
Well, it's only if you...
No, think about Matt Honan. Never forget Matt Honan.
There's two-factor now.
Huh?
That just went over my head.
Okay, so Matt Honan was the Wired reporter whose Apple ID was hacked last year.
Oh, that story. Okay, yes.
And once they got access to his Apple ID, then they were able to wipe his phone and Mac and all the other stuff. So now they'd also be able to render his iPhone useless, which, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to sign up for that one. It seems like a good idea, but ... I guess they have two-factor now, so maybe that's better.
Unlimited tabs in Safari, so you have more than 8.
Oh, yeah.
8 tabs
Thank
open.
God.
It's always like, I always have between 7 and 8. I don't like 8 because if something automatically pops up a window, it kills another one. And so unlimited tabs open. Safari also looks a bunch different in terms of the way you manage your tabs.
Do you guys still use Safari on iOS?
Oh, yeah.
Really? Loyd?
I've tried using Chrome, but Chrome interface just seemed a little clunky to me.
It's a little slow if you haven't jailbroken and done the JavaScript hack.
Right.
Did they mention that? I guess they're not going to say, hey, by the way, we've been screwing all the third-party browsers all this time. But
they also redid multitasking a little bit.
This was a big deal, I think.
So not only is the multitasking display different, everyone is quick to point out, looks just like the WebOS cards, where if you double hit
it shows a picture of the app.
You get not only the icons, but you get an image of what the state looks like.
Oh, you mean like Peek in Windows?
Or Peek in Windows,
or Oxo on the Cydia App Store, the jailbroken app that does the exact same thing.
Not only that, though, but the way applications are maintained in the background, there are APIs now that track which ones are high priority and also kind of keep track of when you use them. So if there are certain programs that you use only in the mornings, then it will know to kind of throw that into a background process in the morning and then kind of put it into a save state and other times, which theoretically improves battery life.
All good refinements.
Yeah, they're smart refinements.
Do you want to talk about
Maps has walking directions now? What else?
So you can walk off a cliff instead of drive off a cliff?
Yeah, hey, look, it's a train. Wait, what?
Long MMS support.
The camera app they've updated, which is the first major redesign that's had in a long time.
Well, it's not about redesign yet.
Okay, so the camera app has been updated with new features, including the ability to take square photos and ruin your pictures with too much contrast and stuff like that.
Filters.
Apparently, they're making it a little bit like they looked at the it looks like they're reducing the number of clicks it takes to get into the different modes for your like panorama and stuff like that.
Instagramification of the iPhone camera.
You can take square Polaroid pictures with your iPhone camera now.
Oh God.
Yeah, that's what I said too.
And no live widgets on the home screen. Your home screen.
Let's talk about it for a second. Let's back up for a second because I think they could have added some useful features. Remember when they added panorama? That was really cool. Wouldn't it be great if they had what was it? The ability to do the stop motion, or what do you call it?
The stitching.
Time lapse?
No, time lapse.
Oh,
yes. That would have been awesome if they could add time lapse to that.
Or Loyd, there's an app for that.
Yeah, right.
Or what?
I know there's an app for that. I'm just about adding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's get crazy and I mean, what if they
split focus lock and exposure lock?
Right.
Yeah, or that, or what about?
You don't have to surface these to most people. You can have them as an advanced feature.
Yeah.
Right.
They also did photo stuff. One of the big pain points for me on iOS is that if you use Aperture or iPhoto, which are Apple ecosystem products, theoretically that stuff should sync across the phone and the Mac app, and they don't. And it seems like they talked about making all these great ways to organize your pictures that live on your phone without talking about any way to get that across to some place that you can actually use it for real stuff like on a PC or Mac.
Right. So the Photos app is now changed so that it categorizes your photos based on
geotag and
time.
Yeah.
The calendar view of the photos is kind of cool. Do they have
really cool.
better folder support?
Better folder support.
That's
yes,
good.
you can put newsstand in a folder now.
Easier to organize. That's great.
Yeah.
Nobody puts newsstand in a folder.
Yeah. But the home screen.
No, I'm talking about photo. The photo app.
Yes.
Better folder app supporting the photo app.
Folder categorizing your photos.
Right.
But the home screen essentially unchanged. It's still a grid of icons. No widgets.
Hold on, we didn't talk about iTunes Radio.
One second. No animated icons.
I'm okay with that.
The wallpaper can be animated
live
now.
Tiles or anything.
No live tiles. The only thing that might be changed, that is changed, is the clock. Now shows the icon is the right time. Okay. I don't know exactly. Is that just like
I wish the weather showed the right time.
Well, the weather does not show the right weather.
Yeah.
Right now it's not 73 degrees. Is that a thing where
Are you sure it might
icon?
Be? Oh, it's 64.
They just store like every minute. However many minutes.
I bet that there's RAM limitations, and the more stuff you run that updates constantly, the more
battery life.
More battery you're going to kill.
Windows Phone 8 doesn't seem to have a big problem with that.
But also Windows Phone 8 tiles lag sometimes. So you turn on the phone, and then the tags update, the tiles update seconds after you turn on the phone.
Okay,
I might be thinking about Windows Phone 7 actually when I say that, but I should be careful. The cosmetic improvements. So
iTunes Radio.
iTunes Radio.
So built into iTunes.
Yeah, did they say how much it's going to cost?
It's going to be free with ads and no ads if you have iTunes Match.
So they're going after Pandora, basically.
Yes, they're going after Pandora. Pandora also just recently bought a FM radio station so they can argue for better
I thought that was a fascinating story. What about Siri? Did they say anything about Siri?
Improvements to Siri.
Yes.
Siri taps into more services now.
Right.
Another place where Apple
it shows Apple. Like
that. I'm not sure what settings
you can go to voicemail.
Change.
I know. I saw that.
Oh yeah. Siri can go into settings. Siri taps into more in-phone services, and also is now tied into more third-party services.
Right.
So right now, most of the data from Siri, the smartness from Siri, comes from Wolfram Alpha and like Rotten Tomatoes or Yelp, I think actually. But now also taps directly into Wikipedia and Bing Search because Google and Apple hate each other.
Hold on. I want to go back to the radio for a sec. Can you make a playlist of songs you don't own? Or is it only songs? Is Pandora style?
It's Pandora style. They have
you say, I want to play, I like Rihanna, and then it plays a bunch of Rihanna-like songs.
Rihanna-like songs.
Can you remove stuff from the future? Can you add stuff to the future?
Nope. Because it's same radio rules.
Now, does iTunes have the same problem that Pandora and the other services like it have with all the covers?
I don't know.
That is a good question.
I know Spotify
That's
also
like
has
a
that
huge
same problem.
on Spotify and Pandora both.
So iTunes, I mean, they have deals with the 3 major music labels.
Right.
So I would assume that they probably, if you're talking about stuff that's inside those walls, you're okay.
It will surface the ones.
The whole issue that it's very easy to do a cover now, right?
Yeah.
The fees are much lower, and it's just one fee now.
Yeah, well, it's the Jonathan Colton thing.
Yeah, right. So everybody does. There's like 150 covers of the same song on Pandora, and it's like, if you specify a particular artist, you might get the cover instead by somebody
That's
else.
another attribute. You want original versus cover.
Right.
That they need to filter out.
Gotcha. Sorry. The Siri stuff, like, I want to see APIs that let people tap their apps into Siri. Until that happens, Siri's kind of useless.
I think all it does is remind me of how good Google Now is at this point, and
Yeah.
the knowledge graph on Google, and having all that data, it will give Google a huge advantage in the next 2 years,
Right.
1 year. I mean, they spot Waze, so Apple were having to resort to, I mean, there's basically only one service they do, Maps. They don't have their own database of, weather, location. They still pull stuff from Yahoo. They still pull stocks from other sources. And none of that is really tied together, so it's not really context aware. And having tap into Wikipedia and, Bing search and stuff like that shows that Siri is still first a personal assistant and then a, start your computer second.
Right.
Oh, so when you do when you kill the activation, you can turn it back on if you sign back in with the same Apple ID.
That's what I said. You need to add your Apple ID.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The car feature that they announced that's coming next year, I didn't see this part.
They talked about how there are a lot of partnerships, and this is a very, very strange thing because they have previously announced partnerships with automakers. I think, I don't want to say Ford.
They had a BMW partnership with the iPod years ago.
Right.
Ford
to put iOS basically into the car.
Right.
But I don't know if that's the iOS. It's not going to be obviously the iOS that's on your phone. I don't know.
I'm profoundly uninterested in having Apple Maps naviging my car. Like that is the worst idea I've ever heard.
I don't know what the integration is going to look like, and I don't know how Apple can do that without wanting control over it.
Yeah, that we'll have to see more of that. That was a very terse kind of announcement. So
because it's not like they're going to come out and release a module that you buy and put in your car. They want something that's going to be in the same aesthetic style as the car manufacturer.
Yeah, of course. Just like they're doing with Microsoft is doing Windows in the car and Android.
But
Google
car manufacturers all use different panels and they all have different sizes and the interfaces are all different. All the buttons are different. All the microphones are all different. So I don't know how they can standardize any of that stuff.
Right.
So then the other thing I saw is that they announced an inter-app audio API on the dev page, which I assume is going to replace Audio Bus. Or Audio Bus was a third-party app API that allowed people who have like all those music synth apps. So instead of having to have 15 iPhones connected into a mixer to make music with the iOS devices, you could run them all in the background and pipe music into one place. And they actually supported it in GarageBand for iOS earlier this year. The fact that they're now announcing their own API makes me wonder if Audio Bus is short for the world.
Right. I'll have to see. Come on, let's stop dancing around the elephant in the room here.
I think the new design looks really nice. What do you think, Loyd?
I like it.
Hey, Norm, what do you think about the new iOS design?
I think that the philosophy of the design of it being layers, it makes a lot of sense in terms of the bottom layer being your wallpapers, middle layer being your grid of apps / home screen, and a top layer being your actual application or the notifications or lock screen.
I think the translucency and transparency looks really nice.
I think translucency makes sense. I think the design of the new icons and a lot of those fine aesthetic details, I think, look really ugly.
Wow.
I think the idea...
Is this because you're resistant to change or getting old and crotchety, Norm?
No, I think if the idea of having the translucent background is to showcase the colorfulness of their apps, the apps they showed, and this will change because you're going to be able to use your own wallpapers. You're going to be able to have not just Apple apps. You'll have,
Right. If current trends hold, I'll have one Apple app on my home screen.
Your home screen will look very
Maybe
different than Apple's generic home screen. But the generic home screen they've set up, I really do not like.
So here's my question. I think that the fair critique of this is that they lifted a lot from Android. like the font treatments that they're using, the font that they're using.
Still Helvetica New.
I understand, but it looks a lot like Apple's, like Google's. The vertically stretched version of Helvetica New that they're using, and the thin font, like the lock screen looks very much like the Android post Jelly Bean lock screen.
Right.
It's a lot of weird abstract things. Like the location of all the functionality is the same. If you look at Safari, for example, and you look at the bottom of Safari, I've launched Safari right now. Anyone who uses Safari knows that back and forward makes sense. It's those two arrow icons on the far bottom left side. The middle button is a share button. The new share button icon looks nothing like a share button. I have no idea what that icon looks like.
Change is scary.
I mean,
one thing that I wish this is a complete side trip here, but I sometimes wish that the iPad also had all the controls for the browser in the bottom.
Yeah, because I hold it from the bottom.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's something we said with the day one on the iPad. Most people hold that on the bottom in portrait mode. You want back and forth.
Or in landscape. It doesn't matter. You're still holding it on the bottom.
On the Mini, I hold it on the... When you're holding it landscape on the Mini, you're holding... Then the top is fine.
Because they want people to hold with one hand and then kind of tap.
Then everybody's going to have wrist and elbow problems if you're supposed to hold a full-size iPad with one hand.
Yep. They changed... Yes, they went so far and they laughed themselves at how ugly the Game Center app was, the old one. I think the new one looks just as ugly. These blobs of color overlapping each other. That means games, okay. The photo app, I mean, there's a lot to be said about people, familiarity, and sure, change is scary. But an app icon where you have like overlapping, like
circles,
circle of like.
It's a color wheel, dude.
Is that what it is?
Pretty obviously.
And that means photos?
Red and orange and yellow, and they all combine and they make the different colors of the rainbow.
And that tells you photos.
I don't know. I mean,
I don't know.
What tells me photos? It's better than it's not a floppy disk icon to save, but it doesn't need to be CNC. You just need something that's instantly recognizable to serve as an icon.
That is absolutely not instantly recognizable.
It is unclear to me that a picture of a flower also represents photos.
Right.
Then they need to come with a better idea.
Right. So it should be a picture of a camera, except for that's of a camera. Maybe you have a view. I don't know what. Maybe it's a stack of Polaroids because that's what everybody's making with this new camera app.
There you go.
I mean, part of me. I think that when you look at this, also the camera icon is instead of looking like it looks like a late '70s Leica. So they're clearly. Somebody went and they lined up probably 300 cameras and they're like, which one looks like the most like a camera? And then they took the line art from that. I think that at this point, it's too early to say whether this looks good because looking at screenshots of something and looking at the way it looks in the real world when you're using it and it's under your hands are completely different things.
True.
I can tell a piece of shit looks like a piece of shit from a mile away. I don't need to smell it.
Thanks, Norm.
It's a piece of shit.
So you're going Android this year. I can tell. You're building up to it.
I'm going to replace these icons.
Windows Phone. Normally doing Windows Phone.
Yeah, sure. Winfo 8, the Enchan edition.
It just looks so unfun. You know what?
You know what's unfun?
The best thing I like about the current iPhone and maybe out the jailbreak gets in iOS 7 is that you still have the reflections on the bottom on the tray on the favorite apps on the bottom.
Such
of the screen.
A traditionalist, Norm.
I love that. I love it because it showcases the design of the icons.
I'm really interested to see what this looks like when you put darker backgrounds behind it, because all of the screenshots that they showed had light backgrounds.
They went overly colorful. They needed every pastel-y color. It's like being punched in the face and you're seeing colors.
You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of when Microsoft launched Windows XP, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, it's so many colors! It looks like it's candy." And then you used it for 10 years, and it was really nice. Reminds me of when Apple introduced OS 10, and they're like, "Oh, where's the thing?" That was actually
my reaction. I had to go back to Windows XP to do something for a project.
Well, yeah,
and it's like, "Oh my God, it's bright."
Yeah, it's really garish and huge.
I do have a theory though, because the design now does seem more like, as opposed to raster art, because it all still is raster art.
Right.
It does seem a little more like vector art in terms of like it's all like straight edge perfect curves and edges and less like gradients and painted details. I think that the detail that you get in the apps today and the design of iOS 6 today really accentuates the retina screen of the phone and the iPad. And I think that having more of this line style art and vector style art could be them backing away from that so that they can have a phone later that maybe does not have that does not showcase the high PPI.
Going after the cheap phone market.
And iOS 7 will still look good on that kind of phone because you don't need the same type of aliasing.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good to me.
All right, whatever.
I think that the fact that they're making square photos in the camera app means that they're probably going to have a square phone screen in the next year. It's just like the Kin all over again. They're bringing that back.
Right.
I think this is. I think it looks fine. I think we're going to know more when we actually use it as a human being. I thought you would really like this, given all the bokeh that's in the UI.
That's Gaussian blur.
Well, no. If you look at the lock screen, all those dots in the background are totally. They're reminiscent of.
Oh yeah, and 5 dots for signal bars. You have
5 is better than 4, is better than 3, is better than 2, is better than 1. That makes perfect sense to me, Norm. I don't know. I think that this looks really nice from in a picture standpoint, and we really won't know until we actually use it.
Really, is that what they're doing for signal strength now?
It's
5 dots.
5 dots
instead of bars.
So
they're trying to.
You ask for less skeuomorphism, and you'll get it. Damn it, enjoy it.
I'm not sure how the bars are skeuomorphic.
Well, because they're reminiscent of an analog meter and some sort of signal.
I never thought of
item.
it that way, but okay.
I always assumed that's what it was. I actually, where did the five increasing bars come from?
Maybe one of the.
Well, it used to be 4 bars, remember, and then they added a 5th bar.
Right? Yeah, because, oops. Yeah, like that's one of those things. I just always assumed it was from a piece of analog metering equipment in the '60s, and maybe it's not. Maybe it's the.
I mean, maybe the 5 dots in the new one, if they pulsate and they're like fit levels, then maybe. Like at that point, why don't you just have like a line?
This is getting in.
It's time to move on.
Yeah, thanks, Loyd. E3 was this week. I was at press conferences all day Monday.
Still only at E3.
Yeah, we're on item 3 now.
Oh my goodness.
Of the podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sony won.
Microsoft press conference. They showed a lot of games.
A lot of shit didn't work.
Okay, let's talk about announcements. November 21st, $500.
Yeah, it's a lot more in other countries.
And
partly because of that. Let's be fair about that.
Okay.
What was the best game that you saw in that presentation?
The Respawn game, the Titanfall. It's from the former Infinity Ward developers. Right. Looked like that clip reel showed what looked like real gameplay. Probably best case, the kind of gameplay I will never have.
Right. Which of course you will also be able to get in your PC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course. I mean, that is a multi-platform game. Right. They're going to do exclusive DLC, but typically the PC even gets the exclusive DLC later. Sometimes even with the Respawn stuff with the Infinity Ward stuff in the past on the same day as the Microsoft stuff.
No one really expected that price announcement, and it came as a shocker because
people were stunned.
Analysts were the gas from the crowd.
Yeah, gas from the crowd.
Gas from the crowd. There we go. Michael Pachter said
a murmur.
340 or 350 and 300 at most.
Well, Pachter's wrong a lot.
But he also really. I think people heavily betted on subsidized models, which doesn't mean that can't still happen.
So the talk on the as people were walking out, I was sitting with Brad and Patrick up in the bleachers, and the talk from people we bumped into was that maybe this was some sort of a red herring to pull Sony off. Because the rumor was that Sony had multiple versions of their press conference to whether they showed pricing at all, whether because they were in the last position they could react, whether they came in lower, whether they came at the same price, whatever. The word on the street was that $349 was Sony's maximum lowest price for the hardware, and that's without the camera. The Xbox is coming with the Kinect; it's required. It was interesting. There were a couple of moments in the Microsoft press conference that just didn't work.
You mean rape jokes?
Yeah, that didn't work.
Take it. Yeah, that was unfortunate. The rape joke was bad. The sound not working for the Panzer Dragoon follow-up was bad.
Well, yeah, but actual demos not doing what they always do is sort of par for the course.
Those weren't demos. Those were just video reels, man.
Oh, okay.
The sound not working for the Battlefield video. Microsoft didn't show very much actual people playing games. Right. Like they showed, there were people playing, it seemed like people playing games during the, what's the Kinect game for kids where you build the game? Oh, hell, I can't remember what it's called.
I know what you're talking about. It's been in prototype stage for a long, long time.
Yeah. basically you build a world, you can draw the world with your hands and stuff, play God, and then you can actually set up a set of gameplay rules and characters and stuff like that to make. It's like a game creation engine.
It actually is pretty neat.
It looked really neat. And it used both Kinect and Smart Glass. They had two people playing at once. One was controlling on the Smart Glass. Like, the cynical part of me says that no one's ever going to have a Smart Glass to do that, but I think since Smart Glass will work on iOS devices and Android devices, like that is the kind of thing that I would want my kid playing.
Also on Windows 8.
Yeah.
So.
The Battlefield guy basically was like, "Fuck this, I'm leaving." When the sound didn't work on his reel twice, and then they pushed him back out and it played.
They also showed Twitch compatibility.
So they announced Twitch compatibility, which is a huge win for Twitch. So that means the PBR functionality and the streaming functionality
huge win for Twitch if they were on the console that people were excited about.
Well, potentially a huge, yeah.
Well, I have some thoughts about that, but we'll do that after we talk about Sony as well. So.
And I guess that's it. I mean, the Kinect stuff.
Yeah, we saw most of the hardware 3 weeks ago when they did all the demos.
Yeah, not very many surprises. The price was the big surprise, and people were
Did they talk about
stunned.
DRM and clarify any of that?
They did not clarify any DRM.
They released that page on their site.
Major Nelson did that 2 days ago, 2 days before.
They showed. They talked about some of it's up to the publishers. You have to go check in every 24 hours, that kind of stuff.
Well, being able to play the same game on the same console with multiple accounts.
Right. So basically what they said. We should clarify this for people who only listen to us. I can't believe you would do that on this topic, but okay. The rules for disc-based and downloadable games on the Xbox One are the same as downloadable games rules on the Xbox 360, essentially, except for the 24-hour check-in. So what that means is on the machine that you initially download the game on, you can play it. Any account can play it, whether it's your account, somebody in your family, your brother, your sister, your mom, your dad, your wife, whatever.
Yeah, it's only the Xbox Live account.
They have to have an Xbox Live, and it can be silver or gold.
Right.
You, the person who purchased the game and it's attached to your account, can play that game on any machine.
Right.
Whether it's like I can play my games on Norm's machine, Loyd's machine, whoever's.
When you're logged on your
when you're logged into my account, when I'm logged into my account, that means that you also can play that game when I'm logged into my account on your machine.
Kind of like the Steam model.
Kind of very much like the Steam model. The only difference is that multiple people can be logged into the same machine, so that like we can play multiplayer games together. I can bring my multiplayer game over to your house. We can sit on the couch and we can all play together.
That's what Steam probably needs.
Right. Well, except for who plays multiplayer games on the same couch on the PC.
Some families share one computer.
Well, yes, Steam does need you download it on this machine. Anyway,
that's
moving on. Yeah. I think that's it. That's the high point. So you have to check in every 24 hours, which basically means that there won't be an Xbox 360 on any forward...
Xbox One.
Xbox One on any military base that doesn't have reliable internet connection.
If you're on a submarine...
Or anywhere that doesn't have reliable internet.
Yeah, or if your cable connection goes down for 2 weeks, as mine is wont to do, you're boned. You're just not going to play Xbox games at all.
Sorry, Sandy.
I think when you're in a natural disaster, you probably have other concerns than getting on your Call of Duties. It was like they have a real messaging problem. Microsoft does, because they're more expensive. They're more expensive because of something that most people who are going to buy consoles on day one don't give a shit about. Kinect. Mm-hmm. And Sony came out and basically said. Hey, we understand why we were slow out of the gate on the last generation, and we want to be friendly to you guys, and we want to give you something that you want to buy and are excited about.
Nothing changes.
Right.
So flip flops.
And what's really great is that so they came out. They came out and said $399. Now, in another universe, $399 would be considered fairly pricey, but in contrast to the Xbox One, it's like, wow, look at Sony
12 hours later.
Yep.
Yeah. So the Sony press conference. They came out. The format for that was different. Jack Trenton came out, talked about first-party exclusive titles. Right. Said they have 14 first-party exclusives in development for 2014, which is I think the right thing to do. I mean, the most first-party games you can come out with in the first year is good, because that's why people. That's really the reason traditionally you should buy a console over the other one. Then Adam Boyes came out and talked about third-party games and led with indie titles, which I thought was really interesting, because we didn't really see. I think we saw one indie game at the Microsoft keynote. Everything else was big third-party and first-party titles like Halo and we didn't see Assassins. We didn't see Call of Duty either. They've shown that a lot.
Rise.
We saw that Rise game, which looked really grim. And then anyway, I'll move on. they focused on indie games a lot. They had 7 or 8 different games, or 5 or 6 different games when I think about it going. They brought out the guys from Supergiant who made Bastion to show off their new game, Transistor, which looked great, gave it a reel. They talked about it for a little bit. Seems like Sony is really focused on the kind of small, edgy, novel, interesting stuff that is personally appealing to me.
And appealing to people who play on Steam.
Yeah.
And also it's kind of bridging the $60 game with iOS type games.
Well, I mean, the feeling I got, and they didn't explicitly say this, but the feeling I got is that they are looking at these small indie experiences as something that could potentially, that can serve as a beta, essentially, for what could end up being a large franchise in the future. And that was great. They showed gameplay on that. They were mixed between Vita, PS4, and I assume some of those were also PS3 games. But yeah, it looked good, and they're going to be $15 or $20. So I don't know about you, but I'm much more willing to experiment with $15 or $20 than I am with $60.
Right.
Then they talked about third-party games. This is where they actually did show some gameplay on stage. They had an Assassin's Creed demo with the pirate Assassin's Creed that crashed like 2 or 3 times during the demo, or hung 2 or 3 times during the demo. That was unfortunate. Showed a bunch of other games, and then they talked. Then Jack Tretton came back out and was like, "Okay, here is what we are going to do. If you want to share a game with your friends, you can. You give them the disc and you can share the game. We're not going to have DRM that prevents that. We're not going to make you activate every 24 hours. Let's see. Here's the stuff you get from PlayStation Plus. They snuck in that you're going to have to pay for PlayStation Plus to play online multiplayer on the PS4. By this point, nobody cared.
$5 a month for multiplayer, but
it's the same thing, and you get the library, which is I think probably the best value going right now. On if you are the kind of person who doesn't go out and buy new games on release day, then they're actually putting out like AAA titles from last year as well as neat indie stuff like 3 or 4 months that's 3 or 4 months old, pretty consistently. They talked about the Vita being their equivalent of Smart Glass. That's the screen-based controller that will add to a lot of games. It's not in the box, so it's not. You'll see first-party games that use that, I assume, and maybe some neat indie stuff that they're going to fund specifically for that.
Yeah, but remember, Smart Glass isn't in the box either.
Smart Glass is, but everybody has a smartphone at this point. You have to assume. Yeah. And then basically they said, "Hey, it's $3.99," and boom, we're done.
What was the gasp? What was the reaction
there was a lot of clapping. Sony also. It's also worth mentioning that Sony let in a ton of just fans, so you could line up outside the venue on Friday. And they let. Well, we met one guy and they said they let 40 people in. Jeff was in the front center of the audience with like the other esteemed games journalists, and he said he was surrounded by these fans because every time they announced something, people were standing up and clapping and cheering. He's like, it was the most terrifying. Like when people stood up and cheered for Kingdom Hearts, he said it was the scariest thing he'd ever experienced in his life. So,
wow.
Yeah. So,
I guess it's a small step above having the employees stand in the background and do the clapping.
Well, the employees were also in the background clapping
of course,
too.
Of course, but I mean, it's like...
Well, and it's E3, so the people for the different game developers. I haven't been to one of these conferences in a long time. The last time I was there, they were in much smaller venues. This was in the place where USC plays basketball. And you could tell where like the guys from Insomniac were and where the guys from
the direction of cheering
where Santa Monica Studios were, because like that part of the audience would just when they'd announce their game. So it was a different tone than the Microsoft one, and I felt like they did a better job kind of talking about stuff that people who are going to be watching E3 press conferences on the internet and in person are interested in.
Yeah, I was now sort of go over the whole global thing. That's what was astonishing to me was not so much that the Xbox One was priced the way it was. I kind of suspected that from all the rumors that have been flying around.
Yeah.
But that Microsoft is just so tone deaf to customers' concerns. They could take their existing story and spin it in a way that's much more palatable, and they haven't been doing that. They've just been dissing people. Right.
You guys are going to buy this regardless of what we do.
That's right.
So Gina yesterday went out to do some pre-orders for me while we were on the show floor, and she went to a couple of different GameStops, and their allotment was all out. So this is super anecdotal. The thing to note, though, is that the GameStops that she went to and talked to the guys had many, many fewer Xbox Ones than they had an allotment of day one PS4s.
Right.
Well, they didn't also announce a date for PS4.
They did not announce a date for PS4.
They just said before the end of the year, I think.
I mean, it'll be before Black Friday.
Right.
So they're going to figure out what day they think they can do, and if they think they can get it out earlier, then they will.
Yeah. The other aspect about it is that Sony's charging less for what you could argue is it's much better core hardware, right?
Yeah, but I mean, assuming everybody ends up with equal market share, then that doesn't matter because they're gonna write for the least common denominator.
Right. Still,
I mean, your first party games will look better.
Hard drive at least.
Still, I mean, looking at both Xbox 360 and PS3 and stuff, you have seen games in both systems where you're looking at 10 frames a second all of a sudden. And so I think that will make a difference, even if the games are designed the same way.
I mean, that typically happened to PS3 games, Unreal Engine PS3 games, in my experience. And I mean, because they're on similar architectures, that should be much less of an impact. The other thing that's worth mentioning is that the Sony system doesn't have the camera built in.
Right.
So the Xbox comes with the Kinect. That means games will actually support the Kinect and voice controls and stuff like that, even if they're primarily controller games. Whereas on the Sony system, that people will not assume that you have that.
Right.
I think it's a $60 peripheral if you want to add it.
Yeah. What was it? Oh, and the other thing was the physical size. I was surprised that the Sony system was so much smaller.
I don't know, so much smaller?
It's hard to say.
I think we saw both the 360 and the PS3 behind glass on the floor, and the PS3
the one, you mean?
Sorry,
the one in the PS4.
Well, one of the websites had a picture of the Xbox 360, the PS3, the Xbox
PS4,
One, and the PS4, and it was noticeably smaller.
But the PS4 also has that weird diagonal.
Right. I like the weird diagonal.
Yes, I like the design.
I think it looks cool.
Yeah.
It can sit flat and also sit up straight.
I also kind of don't care because it's going to go in my entertainment center and I'm never going to look at it. But you know,
it's more about cooling and whether these things overheat.
Has Microsoft said if the one is going to play Blu-ray discs out of the box?
Yeah.
Yes.
It'll play movies.
It'll play movies.
Why wouldn't it?
Because they didn't want to pay for licensing.
Who said that?
No, I'm asking. They said it's Blu-ray capable, but they said it has a Blu-ray drive, but they didn't say it plays Blu-ray movies.
You know, if it comes out that they can't, and you have to pay another $50 to play your movies, nobody's gonna buy one.
That's true. They'll have to eat that.
Yeah.
They're paying Sony every time they sell a 360 or Xbox One.
Yeah. Press conferences were interesting. We went. So the mood after the press conferences from everyone was that Sony is winning, right? Microsoft has a messaging problem, and they have to figure something else out. And the something else could be subsidy, it could be that you get free games, it could be anything. Right. But they have to come out with something. I also wanted to say that there was a dude sitting behind me in the audience at the Microsoft event that when Master Chief took off the kind of ratty looking cloak that he was wearing, I think actually was weeping by that point. Wow. So that was a thing that happened.
Never underestimate the power of fanboys.
It was amazing. I didn't think at this point that anybody felt that way about Halo anymore. But okay, that's cool, I guess.
2014. We went
to the floor.
Both the Xbox One controller and the PS4 controller.
And I stood in front of a Kinect for a little bit, too.
They are both well-designed controllers.
I think. Well, hold on.
Sony addressed a lot of the complaints about their controller.
So yeah, the Xbox One controller, with the exception of until you feel the rumble in the triggers, feels indistinguishable from the Xbox 360 controller, which is fine.
Thumbsticks are a little higher.
The tiniest fraction. It feels really good. I mean, I love the Xbox 360 controller. The Xbox One controller is in the same vein and is like the weight's a little bit different. It seems like
but they didn't screw on success.
They did not mess up that design, so that is the good thing.
Improved on it with 2 additional rumble motors.
I don't know that I felt like that demo was neat, but I don't think it's going to. Like, that is not a deal breaker for me on.
Well, not a deal breaker, but it's totally.
It's nice to have.
Super nice to have.
Yeah, the PlayStation 4 controller is a dramatic improvement over the previous design.
Well, that's good to hear.
Those triggers, those round nubs on the bottom make it fit in your hand better.
Okay.
So it is more comfortable to hold. It conforms to the neutral position of at least my hand. So it kind of rests where you want it to rest to be able to get both triggers easily. Okay. The concave triggers were made it much easier to have fingers on the bumper buttons and the triggers at the same time. Okay. The thumbsticks have a ridge around the outside edge and a different feeling surface. It's a much more tacky surface, so that they're easier to control, and you control them with the tips of your fingers, the pads, however you want to do it.
I just don't know how people are going to use that the capacitive touch button.
I think the capacitive touch button is like the GameCube, like the N64 controller, something you use with one hand on the left stick and one hand on the touch if you need the touch.
It's a little weird.
It's going to be for stuff like lock-picking mini games and stuff like that where you're not in action controls, I think.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. That's it's kind of a cool little feature actually for that kind of stuff.
If they could put it on and it doesn't make it more expensive, why not? It still seems to have integrated battery, so you won't be able to change the battery pack, which is a bummer.
360 or the Xbox One you can.
The Xbox One is a pack.
Is 2 AA's, yeah.
Or you can buy the rechargeables, I'm going to assume.
But you know what? Unless with the Xbox 360, buying their rechargeables was a horrible mistake because their chargers were bad. Buy Eneloops or something and use the things. Amazon Basics.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that's one of the big problems with the PS3. You always kind of had to have your controller plugged in because you never knew. When it would run out of power.
If I end up buying a PS4, I will likely buy whatever dock they have to just set the controllers in when you're not using them because my PS1, PS3 controllers are always dead. I felt like that controller feels really good. Like I sat down and played 20 minutes in like the private demo area, and it felt as good as the 360 controller.
I'm going to be interested to see what their overall pricing policy is going to be for the Gaikai stuff. The Gaikai stuff, I don't know how to pronounce it. The streaming game stuff was just how they're going to do backward compatibility, right?
Yeah, how are they going to are you going to have to put the disc in and it's going to see that you have the disc and then play then?
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be or are you going to pay some fee no matter what?
Well, where do you get your save game? How do you get your save games there?
Well, I think that's hopeless.
Well, I mean, the nice thing is they know on the stuff that you've downloaded, they should just know, right? So that'll just be there.
Right.
I'm super interested to see. I mean, I know that they did a mail-in thing for PSP games.
Right.
So maybe that you just mail in the discs and there you go.
And I'm interested also in how performance will be in lag and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, backwards compatibility with the exception of I think the lesson of this generation is if you care about backwards compatibility, you should probably just resign yourself to keeping the old consoles around.
I just thought that was a nice patchwork solution, right? It's not perfect, but it's at least they thought about it a little bit. Whereas Microsoft says, "Oh, just keep your 360."
The one thing we didn't talk about with the Microsoft solution, with the Microsoft stuff, is the way they're using Azure.
Yes, it is interesting. I'm skeptical, but also hopeful.
Like that was it the Forza demo or is it the other racing game?
Yeah, the cloud-based enemies.
Computed.
Yeah, the ones that basically analyze your performance.
Right.
It really reminded me of that video of the guy who had tracked 3,000 games of Super Mario Brothers 1-1. Did you see this? And he used that to teach the machine just what patterns you press to get through 1-1, and it got through every time. So, like, I actually believe in the ability of massive data sets to mimic your
Well, they also are talking about doing cloud computation stuff in real time too. So that'll be interesting to see if they can pull out that could potentially make up for any performance differences.
I mean,
right?
Well, I don't. So it's not going to make up for like rendering performance differences, but it is. Like the thing that I learned from talking to our engineers as we moved from fixed server setups to cloud-based hosting for the websites is that it is a a significant change. It requires a significant change in the way you think about things. Because while each individual virtual machine is less capable than a dedicated virtual machine, the ability to inexpensively and quickly spin up as many as you need, basically an infinite number of machines, completely changes where the bottlenecks are for web development. And I have to assume that giving game developers access to that same kind of technology is going to give them a whole new realm of potential uses. But it's going to take a while for people to figure out what they can use it for.
And for potentially the Gaikai stuff can be retrofitted with a similar capability too.
Exactly. So yeah, that was the controllers were good. The Kinect, we got to see the live feed out of the Kinect, and that video will be up on the site soon. Maybe by the time you hear this.
Did you participate in any Kinect demos? Did you do any live stuff? I've heard it's much less laggy, but I haven't actually seen.
We didn't do any games. We ran out of time, unfortunately.
It was just a tech demo.
But we basically, you stand in front of the Kinect sensor and they show you the different views that the sensor sees. So I was able to stand. I'm 6'2". The sensor was at my shoulder, chest height, and I was standing about 4 feet away and had everything from my ankles to my head in the field of view.
And its ability to track people in the background was pretty good.
Yeah, they showed
between people in the foreground and background.
Well, were you watching as he did the demo? They showed the night vision mode, the complete in the dark play. They showed live vision. They showed skeletal stuff. They showed engagement. They showed the heart rate. The sensor was able to report back to the game whether I was paying attention to the game and whether I was happy or sad or frustrated.
Oh, it's going to be a wonderful tool for the surveillance state.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, this is not the demo you want to roll out the week after the PRISM stuff hits. And Microsoft apparently was the company that was like, yeah, guys, whatever you want, just come take it. We're good. That was the New York Times report or the Guardian report. Anyway, that stuff was neat. Then we got to go see Oculus. Because they were there, we weren't sure, we didn't know they were going to be there, and we managed to sneak in at the last minute. So thanks to those guys for getting us in with a really short window. But they had a 1080p version of the dev kit.
Right.
Prototype.
Is it? Have they got the 5-inch displays yet, or are they still?
It is a 5-inch.
Oh, cool.
So it is instead of 7-inch 1280 by 800.
Yeah, that's why I canceled my dev order, because I decided that I would rather get the smaller, lighter, higher resolution.
Yeah. If I was paying for it with my money instead of with our contribs budget, I would have waited for the dev kit. I mean, for the final.
Right.
So they didn't say whether they were going to put this do a second dev kit revision. It's very unlikely you'll be able to upgrade the existing dev kits, but this is what they were targeting for consumer release.
Right.
But there's caveats. Because this was intended as like a demo of the resolution. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The screen wasn't as fast as they want to put it in the retail release, so there was still a little bit of side-to-side judder. Okay. The vibrancy and stuff like that were a little lower than I think they wanted. So this was literally just to see what it's like to have a 1080p screen in the optics were the same as the dev kit. Mm-hmm. So they said there's still a lot of tweaking to be done. Okay. But Norm, it was really good.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty cool.
All right. Yeah.
Dramatically improved. Okay. I could still see a little screen door.
Yeah. If you squint your eyes, you can see the screen
I could see it without squinting, but I have worse vision than you. I guess that's it. We talked about PRISM. Do we want to talk about Waze? Google bought Waze. I didn't know what Waze was.
Oh, I have it. It's kind of nice.
Waze was one of those apps that launched so long ago.
Like iOS 3 or 4, right?
One of the first wave of traffic apps. And it seemed like who would use this, because you need a critical mass of people who are using it.
Right.
And it just slowly gained such a huge following.
What does it do, Norm?
It tracks your movement, so you leave it on the background when you're driving, and it knows like where you are on the freeway and where slowdowns are, and sends that data automatically to servers, so people who are not in their cars yet can. And
you can use it as normal GPS nav too.
Yeah.
Okay, so when they announced Apple Maps and when Google talked about Google Maps traffic turn by turn, and they said it'll navigate you around traffic snarls, does this actually do that?
Well, let you know where the snarls are, and why the snarls are potentially there.
Right.
So if you're stuck in traffic, it'll let you know that you only have a quarter of a mile to go before you get past the wreck, and then you're good.
That's because everybody's feeding it data. So
and people can actively feed data if they want to,
as well as passively. That's right.
Okay, so in addition to just collecting the data that says you're on 101 and you should be going 70 miles an hour, but you're going 25, you can also say, oh, there's a crash up here on the right side of the road, and then Waze will tell you. Okay, that seems useful. So Google bought them, I presume, to use in Google Maps.
Just tap into that data.
Oh, so they're just using it as a data source. Okay.
And they said they were going to leave them alone, but we'll see if that's true or not.
Google's been pretty good about leaving stuff alone until they shut it down.
Right.
So I guess that's it for news. Anything do we miss? I mean, I'm sure there's some stuff we missed. It's been a big, huge news week. But let's play some music and talk about what we've been testing. Wrong music. I've been testing Google Glass, Project Glass. I wrote about it on the site.
Right.
I went and picked them up on Sunday and went to the Google campus in Mountain View. And they give you like white glove. Here's how you put them on. Here's how the basic control stuff. Here's what you can do. They help you set it up and connect it to your Wi-Fi there and to your Google account. And it was really neat.
Yeah, we're going to do a big in-depth talk about it. Interesting things.
Well, we're going to do a short talk, and then I'm taking him on vacation next week to the middle of the country to see what normal people think about these.
It is.
I'll be interested in how many people make you take them. How many places you go to make you take them on.
I'm fascinated by that. So far I've worn them to LA for E3. I wore them through SFO. The TSA people were super curious. They were very nice and friendly about it, not at all scary.
Right.
Everyone wants to try them on.
Occasionally got the stink eye from like typically an older people who were like kind of like, you're stealing my privacy. but a lot of
battery-
people were like, "Hey, was that Google Glass? I haven't seen that for real." A lot of people took pictures of me wearing them. A lot of people wanted to have them on and get their Facebook profile picture taken so that they could have a Facebook profile photo of them wearing Google Glass.
Okay.
We did that this morning, Loyd.
Yeah, you did that this morning, Norm.
Is that what the picture is for?
Oh, no. Everyone wants their picture taken with Google Glass.
And a lot of people wanted to just wear them to see what they were for.
Right. Yep.
And a lot of people just wanted to know if they work. Like they were like, "Does this work?" So yeah. Yes.
And it works.
Yeah, it kind of works.
Yeah.
It's much better than I expected. I'm going to keep doing. So the testing strategy for this is to use them for a while. And just kind of see how they what they're useful for, because the software is a little thin right now. The battery life is really bad.
As in
Half a day if you're of just wear. They also, because they hook to your phone with Bluetooth, there's also a battery impact on your phone.
Okay.
I found I basically carry one of those Mophie USB battery packs, so I just charge off of that during the middle of the day.
Right.
But it is the battery is pretty rough. It's like 40%. If you're using turn-by-turn nav, it'll go down like 30% in a half hour.
I really wish it stood upright on its own.
I'm glad it doesn't, because I have to wear it on my head most of the time.
Yeah.
I know you want to have better pictures, but
GPS is a horrible power stoppage thing on anything.
But the GPS is off of a phone.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't have GPS in the unit. It just has a compass.
So you have to run an app on an Android device and then Bluetooth tether it.
So the big limitations right now are that there's no iOS app out yet. I think they implied that it was in the pipeline, but they didn't actually say that. In order to get GPS, you have to have an app feeding the GPS data over.
Right,
so right now I'm connecting it to both my iPhone for data and a Nexus 7 for GPS, which is a little awkward. I'm sure that is also impacting battery life. The iOS versions, if you're using this with iOS, you also won't have access to SMS because Apple doesn't allow that. So you'll have to
because of iMessage?
Because I assume that they don't provide API hooks into iMessage or into messages in general. If you're using Android, you can set, when you say, so on iOS, if you say send a message, it sends it via email. If you're on Android, it sends it via text.
Oh, okay.
The magic of it really is this PRISM design.
Yeah, the screen is much better than I expected.
Right.
So they have a really, really fine, small,
periscope,
high-resolution screen, and it is a one-way mirror, and it just projects.
So I think it's little micro etchings that go at a diagonal 45-degree angle,
or like a pentaprism in an SLR.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, because you can see a mirror on one side and see through on the other side, and it is a super high density display, tiny display
for what it is. It works well outside. I shot a video interview with it. The audio is rough, but the video is quite good. Although Norm, you shot an interview with it yesterday. You have to learn not to nod when you're talking to people.
It's weird.
You must be robotic.
Yeah, so like we're going to shoot interviews with it for a while and see how it goes.
That may be a more awkward use for it, actually.
Well, I mean, I think we'll use it as camera too. So
obviously, the next thing, of course, is just image stabilization when you're doing for that specific kind of application.
But I think the camera would have to be crazy high resolution to even do like the gentlest of nods, because it gives you a live preview of what you're seeing.
Oh, okay.
It's interesting. It's weird. I'm the biggest thing about it is the reactions of everyone else not actually using it.
Right.
Loyd, you built a new machine, you said.
Yes, I have sort of downgraded my production system for those of you who care.
Is this from the one that we built on
No,
the stream?
No, it's not. So my main production system for the last couple of years has been Sandy Bridge Extreme, right? So I've got 6 cores, 12 threads, 32 gigabytes of RAM, 4 channels of memory, all that kind of jazz that you come with Sandy Bridge Extreme, except that they haven't updated that in roughly forever.
Yeah.
Until. So I decided it was time to use a little less power. I did some benchmarking, and I'm not giving up very much in performance at all, even with multi-threaded stuff. So I built a Haswell system that's now my new production system.
Okay.
And I went from a 1050 watt power supply to a 660 watt power supply.
Wow.
80 plus platinum. So the whole thing idles at under 80 watts.
Wow.
Still dry, and that's with a GeForce Titan and all that kind of jazz.
Well, the Titan idle has good idle, yeah.
And then, but I mean, I'm running a 660 watt power supply with the Titan, 2 rotating media hard drives, a 512 gig SSD, and an actual sound card as opposed to onboard audio. So,
and that's fantastic. and it's quieter, I assume.
Yep.
Dramatically.
Well, I built it into the same, the Generation 2 version of the Corsair 550D, which they've improved somewhat.
Okay.
And yeah, it's pretty silent.
Fantastic. Norm, anything from you?
Nope.
Loyd, you always bring stuff for show and tell.
Yes, I brought more
This
games.
is my favorite part of the event.
For those of you, I don't know if we're going to have video this time. These look like four-sided dice, but they're not. They're pyramids.
huge.
Yeah, well, they're large four-sided dice, and they can actually be used as four-sided dice.
Four-sided dice are always pyramids.
Yes, but these are pyramids in a game. They represent pyramids.
So that's like your
Great.
Yeah.
What's the game?
The game is called Kemet.
Okay.
And then
Kemet.
Yeah, it's an area control game where you're basically playing gods from Egyptian mythology, just sort of duking it out over this territory.
Oh, and it looks like you're on the Nile.
Right. And the pyramids represent pyramids, and the pyramids have powers that go up in ability by, and you indicate the increased ability by rotating to the number.
Oh, fantastic. So they have 1 through 4, I guess.
It's used as an indicator, right.
Cool.
Great miniatures. I mean, I was showing Norman the miniatures. The
Elephants.
The little guy miniatures are okay, but the really good ones, if I can find them in here, are the monster miniatures, right? I mean, they're very detailed.
Oh, wow.
So, like, you got the, my favorite one is the war elephant. And if you look at the war elephant miniature.
Did they have war elephants? Is this thematically accurate? Okay.
Who knows? Who cares?
Oh,
It's
wow.
a war elephant. I mean, what more do you want?
people riding
You could paint this thing.
Oh, that's
and it'll look
fantastic.
great.
Well, it looks really good. I mean, it's incredibly detailed. That is an expensive miniature.
Yeah.
How much is this game? Is it crazy expensive?
It's about 16.
Okay, so not too bad.
Yeah. And
It looks like it's really nice construction.
And the nice thing about this is it's this area control game, but it's Euro style and all the card interactions with some card driven stuff. But the whole thing takes, once you know the rules, the whole thing takes less than an hour.
Oh, good. And two players plus?
2 to 4 players.
Oh, great.
Right.
Have you played it yet?
I have not. I
Okay.
watched it played, which is why I wanted to get it. I said, this is really cool after I watched it for about 20 minutes.
Okay, great. You went to Kubla Khan, I assume, a few weeks ago, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. This other game I had for a while, and I just got the expansion. It's called Smash Up.
I've not heard of this.
It's a card game, so you have card. This answers the burning nerd question: what if pirates and ninjas fought dinosaurs and goblins?
That sounds great.
Or any other fact. There's a bunch of these factions from the kind of things you'd find from fantasy novels and stuff like that, and bear cavalry. I mean,
there's
robots.
a gnome.
I would not call that a burning nerd question.
What you want to know is if the Enterprise can blow up the Darth Vader Star Destroyer.
Yes, that is a legitimate question.
The Executor.
Anyway.
The question of whether pirates can fight zombies and aliens, that is just nonsense.
This is great fun. This game is you're hollering and laughing when you're playing this game, and it takes like half an hour.
Have a beer or two and throw down.
Using the Mophie?
Yes.
Oh.
The helium.
Yeah, that's what I have. Yeah.
I still don't really understand the difference between the helium and the other one.
Wait, it's a little bit lighter, thinner. It's mostly thinner.
Okay.
So, anyway, the last game I brought is Libertalia.
Okay.
And this is a pirate-themed kind of card game in which you're doing this card.
You're into pirates right now, Loyd.
I guess so. Where you're doing the card drafting thing, and everybody starts out with the same hand of cards.
Okay.
And then you're going through these multiple phases, which you're plundering your booty, basically.
Yeah.
And so you're laying out your cards in different orders, and so each player may or may not play the same cards over the series of phases. So your hand gradually changes over time, even though there's a draft phase every round where you actually get the same cards.
So when you draft, everybody gets the same cards.
Right.
So it's kind of like Seven Wonders, but without all the switching hands
You don't
and
pass
stuff like
stuff
that.
around.
Okay.
Yeah, one person drafts the cards, and everybody has a separate deck, and they go through the deck and they pull out the
Got
cards
it.
to play.
Okay.
And it's nice mechanically. Some good strategy. You're trying to figure out a good metagame because what's he going to play next, and should I play my card here? Because there's also a mechanism in which when each card has a power for the different phase.
Uh-huh.
So one phase executes left to right in card order. Then when you plunder your booty, that's right to left.
Oh.
So the order becomes kind of important. And then you take your card and you put it in what's called I forget what the actual term is, but you basically place it in your little area. And then those cards have powers in a different phase. And so the order becomes very dependent. And so you're trying to figure out who's doing what. And
So in that regard, it's kind of like Power Grid or something like that, where you're kind of trying to figure out which resources the other person could be into and denying them.
Right. Almost like the bidding Power Grid. And stuff.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
yeah, it's a fun little game. And again, once we figure out the rules are not very well written, I got to say that right up front. It took us a while to figure out there are actually 18 phases, not 6, for example.
Wow.
But once we figured it out and how it played out, we thought, oh, this is really quite cool.
So when you have a game, so this is a problem. Like I've noticed recently that a lot of games that I ended up really loving have really terribly written rules. The thing I've started doing is going to YouTube, because frequently people will have even if it's just like watching people play. You get the kind of the session, but some people are doing really good. Like here's how to play the first game, right? Which generally is enough.
Some of the game companies are doing that. Like when we got what was it, the Dungeons and Dragons board game,
Lords of Waterdeep.
Lords of Waterdeep. They had this wonderful video on the Hasbro website about how to play this game. It's only 9 minutes long, and by the time you were done with it, you actually know how to play it.
And the best of those are like when I sit down with you and you're like, okay, here's how you do this.
Right.
You give me the 10-minute rundown of how to play the game, and that's enough to get me through the rough parts of the instructions.
That's how I sort of figured out Netrunner too. There's some great videos online about how to play Netrunner and strategies and stuff.
Well, and the rules of Netrunner are really dense and kind of disorganized, I think.
Yeah, the actual description of the rules were written, but the overall rule set could be better organized.
Yeah. So I guess that'll do it for us. Where are we on time? We're kind of running late.
Yeah.
I have a couple of really good questions this week, so I want to do questions, but then we'll call it a show.
Emails?
Well, but we do the other one.
Emails.
We don't do emails. We do
emails.
No.
Questions.
Boom. So the first question is from Will Stokely. He's a cop from someplace that I'm not going to say because I don't want to give him trouble since I just gave his full name. His question is that he recently returned from a motorcycle tour of Europe, during which I filmed 96 gigabytes worth of video and photographs on my GoPro Silver Edition in 1080p. I've got a powerful Windows 7 PC. And now I want to edit this data into a cheesy film of my friend and I riding through France, Italy, Germany, etc., and chronicling the adventures we had there. I have used Windows Movie Maker for editing basic GoPro footage in the past, but anything longer than a couple minutes in length it can't handle, and it dies straight away. Do you have any recommendations for basic video editing software that I can use to make my footage into a decent film, Movie Maker style, with subtitles, fades, the ability to add music? My time is limited, so I don't have loads of time or inclination to sink into learning extremely complicated software. I have dabbled with Lightworks 11, but it's too difficult for me to get into. Thanks, and always be testing. So that is the question. My initial response is to try Vegas.
Yeah, Sony Vegas.
The basic Vegas,
the basic Vegas is like $50.
Right.
It's relatively easy to use. If you're familiar with basic nonlinear video editors, it should be a good place for you to start.
Premiere Elements has gotten better.
I haven't used that in a long time. So
version 11 is a lot cleaner than past versions have been.
The biggest thing I would say is with that much footage, make sure you come up with a naming scheme that even if you realize, go through and name and catalog all the footage, because that's going to be the thing that'll save the most time.
Yes,
all your video.
Give descriptive names to all your clips.
Yeah, and keep it. Look at how the software you end up using describes the stuff in the app, so that you give it a name that makes sense. So if you're going to do it by date first, then do date first for everything. Or location first, or whatever.
General aesthetic advice: if it ends up being a fairly long video, half hour or more, please keep the transition simple and to a minimum.
So sparkly fades with the
right.
Yeah. Okay. The next question I'm opening right now is from missed the click. Is from Randy. Randy says, "Hey fellas, I just a question about the benefits of going Crossfire on my video cards."
Don't? Oh, sorry.
Well, he has NVIDIA GeForce GTX, so he's not going to go Crossfire. He's going to go SLI. Okay. But he has a GTX 560, and he's a couple of tiers behind. But it looks like the second card would be a cheap way to pump up some performance without having to spend $400 on a PS4 to play Watch Dogs. I haven't ever done a dual card setup in a PC before, and I'm wondering if the benefits of adding a second card would be as dramatic as adding a second card would seem, or if I'd just get more mileage out of buying a new card altogether. Thanks, and always be testing.
Well, yes to both questions. The way I look at that is that, if you can get the 560 cheap used.
Like, what's cheap used? Like $100?
Yeah, 100, but under $200, right?
Okay.
So a 560 Ti. He didn't say. Did he say 560?
He says a GeForce GTX 560.
So regular 560 is about $200. So you can get for $100, sure. That'll be fine, and it'll nearly double its performance in most games, since NVIDIA's done a great job of proselytizing.
Yeah, their scaling is really good now.
Yes, and a lot of games support it.
Yeah. But however, new games frequently have problems with SLI. And sometimes it takes 3 months before SLI is enabled.
Right.
So then you're playing it. If you buy the game on day one and you want to play Watch Dogs and it's a 40-hour game, by the time they add SLI support, sometimes
you might be done and
never be able to play that game again.
Buy a $250 video card.
Right.
Right, or sell the 560 and put that money, that 100 to 150 bucks you'll probably make off eBay, towards a 770, and you don't have to worry about anything for a long time.
Find a friend who has a 560 already and wants to add SLI, and then tell them how awesome SLI is going to be. Sell them the card. And
find the chump, don't be the chump.
Yeah, if you can't tell who the fish is, it's you. I generally avoid multi-GPU systems at this point, unless you're really high end and like that. If you're buying the highest end cards available, then buy multi-GPU. I think if that's not fast enough for you on its own. Anything else? No, I think that's it. So that'll do it for us this week. Anything to plug, guys? Lloyd, what's going on? Anything?
Not too much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Norm, anything you want to plug? We have good E3 stuff coming up.
Everything's always good.
Switzerland stuff will be a couple weeks from now. Joey's off the rest of this week, and
next week.
Hopefully next week or the week after. So that'll do it for us. I'll have more living with glass stuff soon. I'm going to write that this afternoon, I hope. So we'll see you guys next week with another edition of This Is Only a Test. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, wait. Today's outro is from Paradox24. Hi there. I didn't see you. Test it. Fired your lasers today?
Yeah. Don't laser me. Don't taser me.
The GIF war continues.